Mosaic is brought to you by these generous sponsors and underwriters. Learn how you can support Mosaic by visiting jewishpalmbeach.org. Good morning, I'm Barbara Kay, here with Susan Portnoy, and welcome to Mosaic, Jewish Federation of Palm Beach County's weekly news magazine show. Mosaic explores Jewish topics here in the Palm Beaches and around the world.
The latest estimates say that 12% of the world's population has a disability. Today, we'll take a look at the challenges that face people with disabilities in the Jewish community and how organizations like the Jewish Federation are responding.
We'll talk to a jazz prodigy on the autism spectrum, as well as his mother, about the unique obstacles he and his family have faced on his journey.
We'll sit down with an expert who literally wrote the book on inclusivity in the Jewish community to explore this issue that's only growing in scope.
Then we'll speak with some professionals in our Jewish community who are providing people with special needs with innovative connections to Jewish life.
We'll be right back with Mosaic after this brief commercial break.
Please consider supporting Mosaic's generous sponsors at Bruce Gendelman Insurance Services. Visit gendelman.com today for your expert consultation.
Our lives are made of memories, but when those memories start to fade, your happiness shouldn't follow. At Morse Life's Memory Care Residences, your loved one is safe and secure with the very best care from our staff who are specially trained to work with memory loss. The greatest luxury of all is the peace of mind that awaits at the gold standard Memory Care Residences at Morse Life. Find the life you love again. Secure your lease today. The Memory Care Residences at Morse Life.
Interested in a different kind of Israel travel experience? Join dozens of local community members for a personalized journey through Israel during the country's 70th year of independence. Israel Your Way is Jewish Federation Community Mission to Israel in June 2018. 5 immersive tracks will explore Israel's technology and innovation, arts and culture and cuisine, spirituality and religion, politics and security, and even a track for first-timers and families. Learn more and sign up while there's still space at israelyourway.org. Welcome, Matt and Diane Savage.
Thank you.
It's such a pleasure to have you here today. Matt, you were declared a child music prodigy at age 8. You have an incredible story to tell, and you were also diagnosed with an autistic spectrum at, I think, age 3. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, good question. My name is Matt Savage. I'm a jazz pianist, composer, and educator. I've been playing the piano since I was 6, and I've toured and recorded since I was a child. And I was diagnosed with autism at the age of 3 and underwent intensive therapies for the next 5 years, especially around age 6. And from then on, I've been playing the piano and just enjoying what I do. And sometimes it's been intense because I don't remember a whole lot from when I was a small child, but I've been appreciating things as they go and just working on my professional life.
You've played with quite a number of very impressive talents. Do you want to talk about some of the people you've played with?
Yes, I would love to. So actually just last year I was playing with Stephen Stills and Sean Colvin at a fundraiser concert in New York City. Sorry, Steve Earle, and Sean Colvin, but Neil Young and Stephen Stills were at the concert the year before. And I've also played with Shaka Khan, with Bobby Watson, with Clark Terry and Jimmy Heath and other.
Wynton Marsalis.
And I opened for Wynton Marsalis as well.
Very impressive. And you've played all over the world as well. And I heard that you composed the score for a movie?
That's right. It was for a jazz documentary film called Sound of Redemption, the Frank Morgan story, which is about the alto saxophonist Frank Morgan.
And now you teach piano as well?
Mm-hmm.
When do you even have time to do that?
Well, I teach piano during the weekdays and I tour a lot on weekends, although it's not always so simple scheduling things.
Wow. That's really quite something. And you're all of, I think, 25?
25 years old now.
Amazing.
Thanks.
Amazing. Diane, can you tell us about Matt's diagnosis when he was 3?
Yes, when Matt was 3, he had difficulty with social interaction and playing with objects in strange ways, and he just did not function like a typical child. So we took him into Children's Hospital in Boston, and they did an evaluation so we could determine how he could interact in a school environment, and that's where they gave us the diagnosis, where he was, PDD and hyperlexia.
And what is PDD actually?
Pervasive developmental disorder, and it means that he had difficulty playing with objects, difficulty with social interactions, difficulty with changes in surroundings and changing in...
Was noise part of the problem?
Yes, he was very susceptible to noise distraction and overwhelmed by noises, by
Which
sounds.
is ironic, because how did he overcome the fear of noise to become a musician? That's quite remarkable.
It is. The treatment that we gave him, AIT, or auditory integration therapy, normalized his hearing to the point where he was able to hear sounds and music and things like that without the pain that he had before he had AIT.
And growing up, I mean, you ran your family and you were autistic. How did you deal with the family dynamic with this situation?
Yeah, the family dynamic, it was very strained in our house, because when you're with a child with autism, everything revolves around that child. It's a 24-hour-a-day job, and not a thing happens like you see other children happening in a family. Everything needs to be planned out, and you need to have explanations for him. Nothing is simple. It's all very complicated, and the whole family has to be involved.
Well, I must say, you've created, or with your assistance, you have such a remarkable son, and I think it's just incredible the strides that you've made within your household. I also want to say that you come from a remarkable family, both of you.
Aww.
Your grandmother, your grandparents were founders of the Jewish community here in Palm Beach County, and your grandmother is immediate past chair of the Commission for Jewish Education, who, by the way, is sponsoring this first day of awareness for special needs. So it's special welcome to you, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. It's a pleasure.
Coming up, we'll sit down with an expert who literally wrote the book on inclusivity in the Jewish community.
Please consider supporting Mosaic sponsors at Lesser Landy & Smith. Visit lesserlawfirm.com to learn more.
I want to welcome you, Shelley Christensen. You're the keynote speaker to the Commission for Jewish Education's inaugural Day of Awareness. Welcome to Mosaic.
Well, thank you, Susan. I'm happy to be here.
You
really am.
are the founder of Inclusion Innovation.
Correct.
And the author, and I have to get this right, of the Jewish Community Guide to Inclusion of People with Disabilities.
Correct.
That's quite a mouthful.
It is.
But it's so important. Can you talk about what exactly do you mean by people with disabilities? That term is used so broadly. Can you
Tell us who's included in that.
Absolutely. In the terminology, which really comes right from our legal system and our civil rights system, the term disability is used to indicate a diagnosis, to indicate a condition that somebody has. So whether it's autism or cerebral palsy, ADHD, all the way to anxiety and depression and other psychiatric conditions. So it's a pretty broad base. It's 20%. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, it's 20% of our population.
That's an incredible statistic.
It
really is. So tell me about inclusion and innovation. What is that about?
Inclusion and innovation in my company,
Yes.
my organization. So I started my career at Jewish Family and Children's Service in 2001, and I was the program manager for the Jewish Community Inclusion Program for people with disabilities. Another mouthful. And the idea of that program was really to work with community organizations, synagogues, JFS, JCC's Federation, and all the organizations in the community to help them recognize the barriers to participation by people with disabilities, mental health conditions, and those who love them. So that really it was very groundbreaking in 2001, a lot of foresight on the part of the Minneapolis Jewish community. In the course of doing that, we came up with processes. How do you do this? How do you become an inclusive community? And so that's when I wrote
Your
my first book.
guide explains the entire process from start to finish.
All
it's
of
really
it.
comprehensive.
Yes.
It's amazing.
It's comprehensive in the sense that my community liaisons, all the lay leaders in our community I was working with, said, we're doing these one-off things. We don't know what to do next. What do we do? How do we do this? And I looked at them and I said, I don't know, because you're all different. You all have different cultures, you have different standards of the way you do things. So let's create a way for you to individually navigate this idea of inclusion, belonging, and culture shift.
So you start with inclusion committees. They form committees.
Right.
Do you include members of the community with disabilities on the committees?
Always, always. The disability community has a saying, nothing about us without us. So to presume that we don't ask people with disabilities to be part of initiatives, planning, visioning, whatever that looks like, to presume that they aren't part of it is a mistake right off the bat. So yes, people with disabilities should always be part, because people with disabilities are part of our community life, and inclusion is woven into every single aspect of that.
It really is. It's really something that is so needed in all communities. How did you get into this field of work?
Well, my answer to that is we have a son who has an autism spectrum disorder. He wasn't diagnosed until he was 15 because he has Asperger's syndrome, and that was not a diagnosis available in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, which is the guidebook for diagnosing people. And it didn't mean he just acquired Asperger's syndrome or autism. He had it his whole life. I found that I spent a great deal of time advocating for him in school, and with teachers, with all kinds of people, even socially, in so many different ways. And the only place we never had any trouble, any arguments, any pushback was our synagogue religious school. He was totally part of the community. There wasn't we'll accept him even though. It just wasn't a consideration. Jacob was just Jacob. And so I realized one of my challenges, and many parents also face this, so it's a great deal of, we get angry because of the way that we feel our children are regarded and treated. And
sure.
I was the mother, I was the terrible mother showing up at the IEP meetings. And I was kind of a bully, and I realized this is not helping our son at all. So I did what every reasonable parent does. I went to graduate school and I got a degree in developmental disabilities with the idea that I would create an understanding of what that parent experience is. And that's what I did. And then our community created the inclusion program, and I applied for it. And being a lifelong member of the Minneapolis Jewish community, being really intuitive about this about inclusion and about living that experience as a parent of someone with a disability, it seemed like a really good fit.
So I'm hearing that the Jewish community was so much more welcoming than the secular community
Absolutely.
at large. And is that's why you focused on the Jewish community, because all communities can benefit from what you're doing.
Exactly, and having that opportunity to work in the Jewish community was fantastic, and I made a lot of connections, a lot of relationships with people, colleagues who have become friends, good friends, all over the country and indeed all over the world. And this type of work now is transcending not just the Jewish community, it's going into other faith communities as well as in leadership programs and different things like that.
Yes, everybody apparently is touched by disability on one level or another.
Exactly, 1 in 5 families.
How stressful was your son's Asperger's on your core family?
It was really, I know for me, I always waited for the shoe to drop. Every school year, I would get the phone call, Mrs. Christensen, this is the assistant principal, this is his teacher, this is this person. And I'm calling to let you know that he did something, that he broke a rule. And I realized, and even at conferences, they never said anything good about him. And was I just seeing the good stuff, and was I blind to all his foibles? And the truth is, no, they didn't know him. And it was really stressful, because on one hand, I wanted, and my husband, the same thing, we wanted to be good parents. We wanted to parent him the same way we parented our other children. And yet, the circumstances around that weren't internal to our family, they were coming from outside the family, all that pressure. And I also think, being Jewish, we're so focused on academics and education. And I kept thinking, now what? Is he going to be able to have a bar mitzvah? What is going to be? And of course he did. And all these things, I think the stress comes not only from the exterior, the outside forces, but the stress also comes from realizing that whatever your hopes and dreams are for your child have to be based on who your child is and not on who you thought your child was going to be. And isn't that just good parenting advice for all parents?
It really is. Look at the child for who he is. We're running out of time, and I would love to speak to you some more. I just have one quick question.
Sure.
How could this wonderful Jewish girl have a last name Christensen?
That's such a great question. It's one I get asked all the time. What I often say is that it's the Jewish spelling, Christensen, the Jewish spelling. And I've met other Jews who have the last name of Christensen that spell it like we do too. My husband was not Jewish when we got married. He converted after 18 years of marriage.
Wow.
On his own, without any prompting. I kept my mouth zipped. And we now have another generation of Jewish Christensens. We have 2 grandsons, Eli and Isaac.
That's fantastic.
And they go to our Jewish preschool at our synagogue. So, yeah, that's my name.
Well, mazel tov on your grandchildren, and
Thank
you
you
so much for the work that you do. It's so important.
Thank you so much, Susan.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you.
Coming up, we'll speak with professionals in our Jewish community who are providing people with special needs with innovative connections to Jewish life.
Please consider supporting Mosaic's generous sponsors at Bruce Gendelman Insurance Services. Visit gendelman.com today for your expert consultation.
Our lives are made of memories, but when those memories start to fade, your happiness shouldn't follow. At Morse Life's Memory Care Residences, your loved one is safe and secure with the very best care from our staff who are specially trained to work with memory loss. The greatest luxury of all is the peace of mind that awaits at the gold standard Memory Care Residences at Morse Life. Find the life you love again. Secure your lease today. The Memory Care Residences at Morse Life.
Please consider supporting Mosaic sponsors at Lesser, Landy & Smith. Visit lesserlawfirm.com to learn more.
We're here with Lynn Lieberman, who's the Senior Director of the Commission for Jewish Education, and Dr. Elaine Rotenberg, the Clinical Director of the Alpert Jewish Family and Children's Services and the Levin Jewish Residential and Family Services. Welcome, ladies.
Thank you.
You're here today because of the first inaugural Awareness Day sponsored by the CJE. Is that true?
Yes, but also in partnership with Alpert Jewish Family and Children's Service and the Jewish Federation and the JCC and Meyer Academy. We're all in this together. This is the first time that we have created a day of awareness that also included our professional development conference for the teachers in the Jewish schools in our community. So we're just really excited that we did it all together and we brought it all together.
So you have a bunch of sessions. Is that what you're doing? You're holding sessions
Yes.
for community educators, or are they for the public as well?
Both.
Okay.
We had sessions for the teachers and we have sessions for community leaders and for families.
Can you tell us what the CJE does with special needs or for that community?
We have the J.N. Summers Yad Hebrew School for Children with Special Needs. That is essentially an afternoon Hebrew school that actually meets on Sunday mornings throughout the school year. It's a self-contained program that teaches children their Jewish heritage, the prayers, the blessings. They can achieve a bar bat mitzvah if they'd like to.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yes, it's a beautiful, beautiful program. If you ever want your heart really melted, you have to come on a Sunday morning to see the Yad students.
Do they hold their bar and bat mitzvahs at their temples that they belong to,
Yes,
or is there a specific
if they belong
location?
if they belong to a temple, we hold it at their temple. If they do not, we try to make arrangements in the community at one of the local temples where the rabbi will work with us to help the child have a bar bat mitzvah.
Oh, that's really a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Elaine, tell us what you do at your agency for people with disabilities.
Sure. First of all, it's really exciting to be here today. Jewish Family Service has been kind of in the disabilities business, if you will, for over 20 years now. And what we do is several things. I mean, we have a program called Life Planning, which is specifically to offer consultation and education and information and workshops for families that have a loved one with a disability, because we find that those families, many families, have done no future planning in terms of what will happen when I, the parent, am no longer here. And so we saw that as a huge need, and families can really come and really learn about issues related to Medicaid planning and housing issues and independent activities and a whole variety of things. And we really sort of created like a one-stop shop through life planning for families to get that kind of consultation. Separate from that, we have a continuum of residential services for adults with disabilities. So we have 2 group homes, and we also have a supported independent apartment program for adults that are 21 or older, because there are people, you know, that's why it's wonderful to work together throughout the whole lifespan, because, you know, children with disabilities become adults with disabilities.
Yes.
And then oftentimes there's not only no planning, but adults with disabilities sometimes want to have the option of living outside their parents' home. And where are they going to do that? So we have the more structured group homes, and then we have the apartment program, which really allows for adults to live independently in their own apartment, but with a 24-hour-a-day safety net within the community and individualized care planning and treatment planning for them. So those adults are really part of the general and the Jewish community and have the supports they need. They have oversight of medication and
Oh, it's really
things.
quite remarkable. I've been to some programs that you've hosted at they have a social house, right?
Right.
And they go to work?
Correct. And so the key is to really, which kind of ties to the whole inclusion idea, the key is to really create the opportunity for adults with disabilities to experience all the things that you or I might experience in our lives, including socialization, including getting together with friends. So adjacent to their apartments is an activity center in which we have life skills classes, and they have Shabbat meals together, and we bring in a Jewish educator from the community to meet with them, and any number of volunteers come in to do karaoke or art projects, and plus then we're taking them into the general community. So yeah, there's a lot going on there.
Yeah, there really is. You know, it's so interesting that our Jewish community seems to have taken charge of being inclusive for people with special needs and disabilities. And we have Shelley Christensen who spoke, and she was started in her community, again with the Jewish community. Why do you think it's about Judaism? Why does that play such a big role?
You know, I want to say something about that, which is that there are so many things, and Lynn can speak to all the different Judaic quotes, okay, in terms of how we need to, look out for our community. But historically, Jewish communities have not been good at dealing with people with disabilities. And there's been a lot of exclusion and people feeling like there was a lot of stigma, and that, this isn't happening in my household, and I only have gifted children in the Jewish community, and I can't really talk about my child that has a disability. And so part of what's exciting about today is that this is, if I might talk to the inclusion issue, Jewish Family Services, we are so excited that we got a grant from the Jewish Federation, to initiate what we're calling the Jewish Disabilities Engagement Initiative, which includes, and that's even though we've all been doing sort of our own thing for years, this is the first time that we are building a community coalition of every every Federation partner agency and the synagogues and other agencies, Jewish organizations that work with people with disabilities. And we're all sitting around the table with the goal being to create the vision and the blueprint for what a welcoming, engaging Jewish community for persons with disabilities would look like. So it's very exciting.
Very exciting.
Yeah.
On that note, I want to thank you both for joining us and continue the fabulous work that you do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Coming up, what's happening in your community?
Want to see Israeli fashion icon Sharon Tal speak in person? Join me and other dedicated women in the community at Celebrating Women. This is Jewish Federation of Palm Beach County's flagship event for women in our community. Celebrating Women is on Monday, January 29th at 11:30 a.m. at the Hilton, West Palm Beach. Interested? Learn more and RSVP today at jewishpalmbeach.org/celebratingwomen.
Mosaic is brought to you by these generous sponsors and underwriters: